All right. District Attorney Ms. Templis is going to do cross-examination. As a reminder to everybody in the back of court, make sure your phones are completely off. We don't want any distractions. For Ms. Krebs, when you get questions, make sure you listen carefully to the questions. Your microphone is activated, so stay near your microphone. When you hear the scope of the question, keep your answers within the scope of the question. Don't volunteer anything extra. If either attorney wants anything extra, they'll ask you a follow-up question. Also, if you need anything to refresh your memory, whether it's an exhibit or any kind of document, the attorneys will give those to you to review to assist you. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Templis.
Ms. Krebs, you're 40 years old,
That is correct, ma'am.
and this happened last year.
Yes.
And you said you started dating Joey Carnot in May of 2023, right?
It was around there, yes.
In fact, the first message or text message between you was about May 31st of 2023. Does that sound about right?
Yes, ma'am.
And while you were dating Joey, you met Kaysen, his son, in approximately June of 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you met Kaysen, that was at a drop-off at Quick Trip, right?
I believe so, yes.
And isn't it true that you wouldn't tell Brittany your last name and that you just went by Sam then, or Samantha, right?
It was going on between Joey and Brittany. Brittany wouldn't tell Joey Chris's last name, and Joey would not tell
Sam,
Brittany my last
Samantha, I'm going to ask you questions, and I
Okay.
just want you to answer my question, okay?
name. Okay,
So, it's true that Brittany didn't know your last name, right?
that is correct.
And at a point in time, she asked you your last name, and you didn't give her your last name either, right?
That is correct.
And isn't it true that the phone number that Joey had prior to meeting you was the same phone number that he had when he died?
That is correct.
And so his phone number was never actually disconnected, right?
No, it wasn't.
And he used your phone to call or to contact Brittany and have communication with her?
That is correct.
During the summer of 2024, your employment really was just you selling some things on eBay, is that correct?
No,
Okay. What was your employment?
I was doing landscaping.
Okay. Not landscaping, though, on July 18th of 2024, though, right?
No,
Okay. You said you got engaged sometime prior to when Joey died?
correct.
So at that point in time, last summer, Kaysen would have been 4 years old, is that right?
That's right.
And isn't it true that Joey loved being a dad?
That is correct.
And Kaysen was really important to him.
That is correct.
And his dad wasn't really involved in his life, so he really wanted to be involved in Kaysen's life. Is that fair?
Yes.
And you said yesterday that you wanted you, Joey, and Kaysen to be a family, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would make you his stepmom, right, when you got married?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think we can all agree that being a stepmom to a young child is an important responsibility, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it requires a lot of responsibility for putting somebody else's needs or child's needs ahead of your own, right?
Correct.
And you would certainly want to give Kaysen the best life he can, right?
Right.
And you would certainly want him to be safe, right?
That is correct.
And you'd certainly want him to be healthy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified yesterday that you and Joey were upset that Brittany was withholding Kaysen from you and Joey that last month. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And that was a big deal because you wanted to be a family, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point in time, Joey was supposed to have Kaysen on Wednesdays and every other weekend. Is that true?
That is correct.
And in fact, she was going back to court for family court to get full custody of Kaysen, and had a court hearing scheduled later that month, right?
Yes.
And isn't it true that that was because of the concerns about Joey's drug use at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And isn't it true that, as you talked about sometimes, or maybe you didn't, but when he was using, sometimes he would miss pickups or drop-offs of Kaysen, right?
I don't understand the question.
Sometimes because of drug use, he would miss pickups or drop-offs of Kaysen, right?
Sometimes, yes.
And isn't it true that part of the reason why you left on July 18th was because you had drugs and drug paraphernalia in the house, right?
That is correct.
And I think we can all agree that having drugs and drug paraphernalia in a house wouldn't be a good environment for a 4-year-old child, right?
Right.
And during this time, you said your testimony yesterday was that you were using pretty consistently around that period of time of July of 2024, right?
Periodically.
Well, you said you had been using quite a bit, right?
That day, yes.
Okay? And certainly we wouldn't want a 4-year-old child around somebody who has been using, right?
No.
And when somebody is using, somebody can act in ways that don't make them responsible for a 4-year-old child, right?
Correct.
Including you, right?
Correct.
And so, as Kaysen's future stepmom, you'd agree that it wouldn't be in Kaysen's best interest to be around two people who are using together at that time, right?
Correct.
And we talked about how important Joey's role as a father to Kaysen was. And you certainly love Joey, you said yesterday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that you were engaged to him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you would presumably want the best for him, right?
That is right.
And the best for him at that time would not to have him be using and for him to get treatment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you still continued to use around him, right?
Who is him?
Joey, you continued to use around Joey.
Yes.
And you continued to have drugs around Joey, right?
We both had drugs, so yes.
Right, but you said that that night you had invited John Pfeffer over that evening. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said that he was also bringing somebody else, right?
That is correct.
And you heard John Pfeffer's testimony that he was coming over because you had meth, right?
We both did, yes.
You and John had meth?
Me and Joey both did.
Okay, but you had told John Pfeffer that you had meth, right?
I think it was unspoken, but yes.
Okay. And what would be in Joey's best interest was with his upcoming child custody hearing would be for him to encourage him to get into treatment, right?
Yes.
And to not be using around him as well, right?
Correct.
And so that you could be a soon-to-be stepmom and get help yourself, right?
Correct.
And you did not, correct? Help that July.
Actually, I was seeking help. I was in AODA and day treatment.
Okay, so you're in treatment and you're still actively using meth, right?
Not the entire time, no.
Okay, but you're in treatment and you're using meth, right?
Yeah, I had relapses, of course.
Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about testimony you said yesterday about an incident that happened at a hotel in Wisconsin Rapids. Isn't it true that that happened in March 29th of 2024 and not the summer of 2024?
I'd be guessing, but that sounds correct.
Okay, and you said that Joey was exhibiting some odd behaviors from using meth, right?
Yes.
And those behaviors were not violent, right?
No.
And they were not suicidal, right?
Well,
Yes or no?
were they suicidal? No.
Okay. No self-harm, right? He wasn't cutting or he wasn't doing anything to hurt himself in terms of self-harm, right?
Not while I was present, no.
Okay. And there wasn't any mental health hold or anything that came out of whatever happened that day, right?
He just got a fine.
We're talking about a mental health hold, right?
No.
No mental health hold. So you talked about being on probation yesterday. Joey was not on probation, right?
That is correct.
And you talked about your probation agent was in Wisconsin Rapids, right?
That is correct.
And when you were arrested on July 22nd of 2024, you stated yesterday you were walking to Missy's van to tell her she could wait inside while you got ready. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you recall seeing a video where Jeff Hayes exits the apartment, looks around, and then basically waves you to come out, right? You saw that video?
Yes, I did.
And so he was kind of looking ahead and making sure no one was out there for you, right?
Correct.
And then once he gave you the all clear sign, then you exited the apartment, right?
Yes.
And you said that Missy, that was about 2:30. Do you recall that?
Yes.
PM or AM?
I'm sorry, PM on July 22nd of 2024, right?
I don't remember the time.
Kind of mid-afternoon, right?
Correct.
And you said that you were going to go in and you were going to get ready and Missy was going to wait inside with you. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And the probation agent's office closes at 4:30, right?
4:35, I'm not sure.
Okay. And as of then, you weren't ready and you had to still drive to Wisconsin Rapids, right?
That is correct.
And Wisconsin Rapids is about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more from here to there, right?
I'd say less.
Okay. So let's walk through the time on July 18th of 2024. So I want to start with exhibit number 150. If we could put that on the stand, or on the screen, thank you. So this text is sent to you at 7:27 in the morning on July 18th. And it is from Joey to you, right?
Correct.
And when he sends it to you, are you still sleeping at that time, which is why you don't read it till 9:25?
I don't recall.
Okay, so you don't read it for about 2 hours, right?
That is correct.
And the text message says, "Good morning, my shine bright." And is that like a diamond?
Yes, ma'am.
"I would love to make home-cooked meals with you and be partners in the kitchen." Do you see that?
Yes.
Sweet message, don't you think?
Yes.
And he was really sweet, wasn't he?
Yes.
And really kind and really loving. So then we have your response back. After you read the message at 9:25, you respond at 9:31. And I'd like to show you what's exhibit marked 151, and that's from you back to Joey, right?
That is correct.
So after his sweet message, you said, "I know you're trying so hard to have time with me, and I'm so sorry I didn't think that extra little PC would put my dick in the dirt, but I'm still fucked up as we speak. Love you." So when you talk about that extra little piece, it's LILPC, are you talking about another drug?
I'm talking about my medication.
Okay? And it would put my dick in the dirt, and that's what you said, right?
Correct?
And you're still fucked up, right?
Yes.
And that fucked up is from you using meth, right?
No, that's from my Suboxone.
Well, you said yesterday that I thought you said that you had been using
Meth?
that morning, yes?
I didn't use that morning. I don't think it was until afternoon.
Okay. But you're still, quote, fucked up, right? Is what
Off
you-
my Suboxone, correct.
And your Suboxone's supposed to be helping you stay clean, right?
Yeah, but it's a
Okay.
process to get
I-
it in my system.
I understand, but I'm just gonna ask you if the Suboxone is supposed to help you get clean, right?
Correct.
Okay. So then if we look at Exhibit 152, he responds back to you when you tell him that you're fucked up and your dick is in the dirt. He says to you in a text message at 1:25, I know you got a lot going on and stuff. It's okay. Just can't wait to say I do. Isn't that what he says?
That is correct.
And that's him talking about he can't wait to marry you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's another really sweet message, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So then at Exhibit 153, he sends you another text message shortly after that at 1:27 that says, remember to call in your subs and get the Capital One card done too. So in this call, is he reminding you to get your prescriptions and then also to pay your Capital One card?
Yes, ma'am.
So he's trying to be real responsible, making sure that you're getting certain things done to help out, right?
Correct.
And then when we see Exhibit 154, he sends that shortly after, within seconds, where he tells you that he's right by the house, come say hello. Do you see that on Exhibit 154?
Yes.
He was working that day, right?
Yes.
And that's a good thing, that he's working, right?
Yes.
And he sends that to you at 1:27, and then you see that at 2:17. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, in the next exhibit, 155, that particular portion of the message is actually blown up in 156, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this a construction area where he was working close to where you two were living?
That's what I would assume, yes.
And he wanted you to stop by to say hi, right?
I think he was stopping by the apartment to say hello.
I believe if we look at Exhibit 154, he says, I'm right by the house, come say hello, right? And his work, where he was working that construction was right by the house, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so he wanted to say hi to you in the middle of the day, right?
Yes.
Because he cared about you and that would be a nice little bright spot in his day, right? So then we get to a message where you don't respond to that particular message about come say hello. And on 157, he sends you a text message at 4:25 that says hello, as kind of as if you haven't responded. Do you see that?
I see that.
Okay. And then at a couple seconds later, he tells you in Exhibit 158, I'm on my way home. Do you see that?
I see that.
So he's letting you know that he's on his way home from work, continuing to communicate with you. Isn't it true that this is very normal conversation, right?
Yes.
And then a couple seconds later, he says, what are you up to? Do you see that?
Yes.
So he's done with work and he's gonna be heading home and he's wondering what you're up to. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Now, he sends that at 4:25, but you don't actually read that message until 8:50, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Exhibit 160, he sends that at 4:51:27 from him to you. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
And he's apologizing. Something happened, and he says, "Sorry, I think I overreacted. It's all good, no worries." Do you see that?
I see that.
And when he has you identified in his phone, do you see that where it says Samantha LOML?
Yes, I see that.
And that means love of my life, right?
Yes.
A really affectionate way for him to refer to you.
Yes.
And in Exhibit 161, he then follows up within the same couple seconds that whatever he was apologizing for, he didn't want to talk about that while you're with Johnny Boy. Do you see that in 161?
Yes.
And so the conversation that he wanted to have was just not something he wanted to talk with Johnny Boy around, right?
Correct.
Okay, then we get to Exhibit 162. Let me back up. This message in 161 that he sent at 4:51, you didn't read that until 6:57, right?
Correct.
And you said during that afternoon you were smoking meth, right?
Yes.
And then Exhibit 162, he texts at 4:53, a little bit after him not wanting to talk about whatever the topic was with Johnny Boy. And he says, hey, on 162, hey, no worries, I ain't gonna touch his stuff, but I was gonna sit down and watch TV or whatever, and I see a bitch in front of me. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And bitch refers to what?
Paraphernalia?
And at that point in time, he had, 4:53, had just gotten home, and at that point hadn't used anything, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then, let me just look. That night you had, you said you were smoking meth that afternoon. You had Johnny Boy over. Does Johnny Boy also smoke meth?
Yes.
Okay, and then you had Chong over at some point, right?
Correct.
And Chong also smokes meth?
Correct.
And you then get this message on 165 that is dated, or sent, I'm sorry, at 8:50. And this is when he's in the bedroom, right?
Correct.
And you're out with Chong at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so at 8:50, you're out with Chong, you're smoking meth, right?
I think we were done smoking meth at that point.
Okay, well, you had just smoked meth with Chong, right?
Yes, we all did.
And then, meaning you and Chong, Joey's in the bedroom right now, right?
No, we smoked meth and then Joey went into the bedroom.
Okay. You see where it says, Samantha, you know this is hard enough, babe, and you tell me to go in the other room. While you sit out there with dude, my cravings are skyrocketing right now. Meaning at that point in time, he was having a drug craving, right?
Yeah, he wanted more.
Okay. And then you sent him a text message that Chong left at 8:51, right?
Yes.
And his response back to that was still, exclamation mark, right?
Yes.
And then you told him that you were eating a bowl of ice cream, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that really ice cream or was that a reference to doing drugs?
I think I really was eating ice cream.
Okay. Sometimes bowl references drugs, right?
Yes,
And so it's your testimony that was really ice cream,
yes,
okay? And in Exhibit 169, Joey's still sitting in the bedroom, and he said, "You're sitting out there high." Do you see that?
yes,
And you were high because you had just smoked meth, right?
yes,
And in Exhibit 170, you said, "Should I not be?" Right?
yes.
Like, should you not be high? Right?
Not be sitting in the living room is what I meant.
Okay. But his message to you in 169 was you're sitting out there high, right?
I don't know if he is referencing that I'm high or I'm sitting out there high, like, hello, pay attention to me.
Okay, but we know you're high, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 169. He knows you're high, right?
Yes,
Okay. Then we get to a message at 8:52 that says, "I'll split if you split." Do you recall that message from him to you?
yes, I do.
And splitting usually means splitting some drugs, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And you then ask him split what, right?
Yes,
And he tells you you're an adult and that was referencing Exhibit 170 when he says, "Should I not be?" Or I'm sorry, when you say, "Should I not be?" Right?
can you repeat the question?
Yep, sure. I think that was a bad question. So in Exhibit 170, he says, or you say to him, "Should I not be?" And he was referencing how you were sitting in the living room high, right?
Yes,
And then you respond back, "Should I not be?" at 8:52:05. Do you see that? On 170, I'm sorry, 170? There we go.
what was the question now?
Yes. So he said, or you send him a message at 8:52 that says, "Should I not be?" referencing the text about you sitting in the living room high, right?
Correct.
Okay. And his response to that in Exhibit 173 is, "Yes, you are an adult," right?
Yes,
And he said, "So is he," in Exhibit 174.
yes,
Exhibit 175 has some question marks because he's wondering, you have question marks that you're sending him, right?
yes,
Okay, and you're asking him again, split what, right?
yes, yes, I wanted him to be specific.
In 176. And that's where he says in 177 and 178, because there's a little typo, so he kind of corrects it, is a bowl for a bowl, right?
Correct.
And does that reference a bowl for a bowl of ice cream or a bowl for a bowl of meth?
A bowl of meth for a bowl of weed.
Okay. And then on Exhibit 180, you send him a message back that says Savage at 8:54, or I'm sorry, 8:53 on 180. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, so 8:53 is approximately an hour before, not even an hour. 8:53 is about 55-ish minutes before he's stabbed, right?
That is correct.
And up until that time, we have not seen any text messages here that these messages appear to be conversation between the two of you sitting in the living room and him sitting in the bedroom, right?
Yes, yes,
And they're conversations that go back and forth. And then we don't have any messages at that point yet to Ba. Isn't that true?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's look at Exhibit 184. So after those text messages, does Joey come out and use some meth with you in the living room?
That is correct.
Okay? And then when he uses that meth, do you see in Exhibit 184, the message that says, "Can I get that P from you?" from Joey to Ba at 9:37?
Do I see that, did you say?
Yes, on Exhibit 184.
Yes,
And he would need a clean urine screen, ultimately, if he has a drug test at work in the next couple days, right? That's why one would need to get pee, right? Clean pee?
yes, that would be
Okay.
correct.
And so he recognizes that he's used and he has this job, right?
Yes,
And he also knows that he needs to keep his job, right?
yes,
And keeping his job requires that he have a clean urine sample if he gets tested at work, right?
yes,
And that was at 9:37. That was at 9:37. Okay, sorry, I was just checking something. 1 minute. Just looking for one thing. My apologies. I just want to make sure that,
All right, well, you're looking for something, we can stand and stretch. I'll also introduce you to Christine, our court reporter for today. So appreciate we have another fill-in court reporter. She's got lots of young kids and stays off of trampolines herself, so she's not gonna have the same accident our other court reporter had. So let's stand and stretch for about a minute.
I'm ready.
Okay, we're back on the record. It's 9:09 a.m. and we'll continue with a cross-examination.
So Chong left approximately around 9 o'clock. Is that about accurate?
I'm not sure the exact time. I don't remember the,
Refresh, because
okay,
I think it's Exhibit 166. So 8:51 says Chong just left, right?
correct,
And prior to this, we aren't seeing any strange text messages on Joey's phone. They all seem to be conversational, right? That we've just looked at.
correct,
And you testified yesterday that you told Chong to leave because of Joey's behavior. And at that time, Joey was in the bedroom, right?
yes,
Okay. Now, 8:51 to 9:37, that's the point in time after Chong left that the two of you were smoking meth together,
yes,
okay? And you had actually been using for quite some time at that point, right?
that is correct.
So at 9:37 with this text from Joey to Ba. We know that John and Christy walk up to the apartment and get there at about 9:46, right? So less than 10 minutes from when he sends this message, right?
Correct.
And so at that point in time, he hadn't, other than asking Ba for P, he hadn't gone anywhere to see Ba, right?
No.
And at that point in time, Ba hadn't even responded to him about whether or not he had clean urine, because that text message from Ba didn't come back until 9:56. Do you see that in the lower left-hand corner of Exhibit 184?
Yes, ma'am.
So by then, Joey was already stabbed, so Joey never even would have seen Ba's message, right?
That is correct.
And you said that there had been a plan that Joey was maybe going to meet his Uncle John, right?
Yes.
And you told him that was a bad idea because of the state he was in, right? And you were worried about his custody hearing, right?
Correct.
And you're worried about his custody hearing and seeing Uncle John, but you're also smoking meth with him, right?
Yes.
And then your testimony was that he had a call with his uncle, and they called off their plans. Do you recall that?
Vaguely, yes.
And if we look at Exhibit 181, that was when, at 8:53, after Chong left, that he called off his meeting up with his uncle. Do you see that at 8:53? The call answered to his uncle,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you see another message at 9:13 as well, and I believe that's when it was called off, right? At 180. I'm sorry, Exhibit 183 at July 18th of 2024 at 9:13. Do you see that?
I see that, yes.
So between the time of Joey texting Ba that he needs to get clean urine at 9:37, your testimony is that you had been in the bathroom and you knocked over a shelf, right?
That is correct.
And that you stated that yesterday that Joey was accusing you of things at that point, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then you said that he had used the bathroom and accidentally closed the door on your hand, right?
That is correct.
And you said that you then retrieved your phone. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you said that Joey was talking about his mom. He was upset and emotional, and you thought he was in a cycle. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said you've seen this in the past, and you were concerned because it was common when he was off his meds, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And isn't it true that at one point in time, you say that he's off his meds for about 24 hours, and then you change it to 72 hours at some point, right?
I would be estimating, yes.
Okay, because you don't really know, right? I mean, 24 to 72 hours are 3 days.
I don't want to guess.
Okay. And so then after he's now going to the bathroom, right? When you retrieve your phone.
Yes.
And you said that you then went into the living room and you sat on the couch and called John Pfeffer. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And you said you called John Pfeffer 4 times. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you didn't want John to come over because you said it was not going to end well. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then after calling John Pfeffer 4 times, it was your testimony that John never answered, right?
That is correct.
And then you also testified that you would often leave in the past, or you were going to have John pick you up and not come inside. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you call him 4 times. Joey comes out of the bathroom, and you said yesterday that after you placed those phone calls to John, Joey just kept going, so you told him to go into the kitchen and have pizza. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And he ate some of the pizza, right?
That I don't know.
Okay, well, there was some pizza on the counter, right?
Correct.
And he told you told him to have some pizza, right?
But I don't know if he consumed it.
Okay, and you said that Joey went into the kitchen from the bathroom, right?
That is correct.
And you said he was talking about losing his job, and he was concerned about things he had gone through as a child, right?
That is true.
And at this point, you said you knew he was going to get more crazy, and so you were going to leave and go to Jeff's. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And during this time period, it's happening for a few minutes, right?
That is correct.
And it's kind of going on for, do you say 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yes.
Okay, and this is all after you called John, right?
Yes.
So you called John, 5 or 10 minutes. He's having something that you talked to yesterday was either a manic episode or a psychotic episode. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do, ma'am.
And in fact, do you recall having a conversation with your mom about that?
Yes, I do.
And when you had that conversation, are the two of you talking about what people should testify to at trial in that phone call?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in fact, what to tell people to say. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, we sequester people at trial so that people can only talk about what they specifically know, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so telling people what to testify at trial would not be the right thing to do, right?
That is correct.
All right. I'd like to play that phone call with your mom. And I believe that phone call took place on April 24th of 2025, right?
I'm not sure of the date.
Okay, if I told you that's when it happened, does that sound about right?
Yes, ma'am.
So at this point in time, trial dates were scheduled, right?
In April, yes.
Okay, we've had trial dates for quite some time, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you knew your trial was coming up, right?
Yes.
And you knew that people would be testifying, right?
That is what I was told, yes.
And at this point in time, you had all of the police reports, all the videos, all the audios, all the discovery of the investigation, right?
Not all, but mostly, yes.
Okay, there's been ongoing things, is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, but you had really the bulk of all your tests, the bulk of all the investigation by that point to review, right?
Yeah, bulk of it.
And we've had a number of different court hearings, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're talking about the case and preparing for trial, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's listen to this call on April 24th of 2025 at 18:38. And for the record, it's on Exhibit 1 under Krebs Exhibit, Chad Riddle calls, and it's called Mania to Psychosis audio.
Go ahead, you can play that.
Mania did, and I sent it to Pin, and he said that's identical to what Joey had.
Oh, okay.
Did you get that? Because I sent it,
No,
and
I didn't
now I.
look yet.
Oh, anyway, it's really, really. You can get it from trauma. You can get it from using street drugs. You can get it from. Oh my God, it's identical to what he has. So we can drop the manic episodes, and it's psychosis.
Yeah. Well, like when you are in court or Pins in court, you'll just have to say that instead of mania.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if can you tell that to Knuckles, what did you get? Can you tell that to Stephanie too, that that's what you think it is?
Yeah.
we can change the whole thing and then,
And we played that in its entirety, correct?
Correct.
When your mom is talking in the first part of this call, right?
Yes.
And she's talking about kind of doing her own research between mania and psychosis, right?
Yeah, I think she did research and also from personal experience.
Okay, and she also talked to Pin, and that's Jeff Hayes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so she's talking to Jeff Hayes and she's doing some research. And prior to this, the only reference had ever been mania, right? As you talked about it.
Yes.
And now, at this point in time, with this conversation with your mom, you then start talking about how instead you're going to call it psychosis. Do you recall listening to that?
Yes, I do.
And that to tell Pin and to her that if they testify that they should also use the word psychosis. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that is you trying to impact what people testify about at trial, right? Because you said, have them testify to that, right?
I was just trying to find accuracy, yes.
No. Let me ask that again and listen to the question. You're telling people to testify to something specific being psychosis in that call, right?
Yes.
And that doesn't require them to just say what they know. You're telling them what to say, correct?
Yes.
And your mom was talking to Jeff Hayes during this time about your case, right?
Yes.
And then she would relay things back to you, right?
Yes.
So during this 5-10 minute period where you've called John 4 times, he hasn't answered. You said your phone is in the living room with you at that time, right? When Joey's in the kitchen.
That is correct.
Okay. And this lasts for quite a period of time between the phone call and the last phone call to John and when Joey is acting manic or psychotic, has psychosis or mania or whatever you want to call it, right?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. You're in the kitchen, or you're in the living room,
Okay.
and it's been like 10 minutes, and Joey's having this either mania or psychosis episode, right?
That is correct, yes.
Depending upon what you want to call it, right?
Right.
And you said that you don't know how to calm him down, and so you went into the you were sitting in the couch, and you were gonna put your sandals on. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said something came across, he threw something across the living room. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you were on the couch when that happened and Joey was in the kitchen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified that Joey said, if you left, Joey would kill himself. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said all of a sudden you went to leave and he had blood between his fingers, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so how long is this period of time from the last John Pfeffer call to when you're gonna get ready and walk out the door?
If I had to guess, I would say 5-10 minutes,
Okay,
but I'm not sure.
okay. 5 to 10, but a period of time because all of this stuff had to happen with him acting crazy, right?
That is correct.
And him being by the pizza, right?
That is correct.
So you said you see the blood between his fingers and you say, oh my God, what did you do? Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said he's running back and forth and you're not sure what he's doing, so you have him lay down.
That is correct.
And does he lay down nicely?
Yes.
Okay, so he lays down. You said that he grabs a paper towel and then you put pressure on it, right?
I grabbed the paper towel.
Okay. I thought you also testified yesterday that you put pressure on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said you saw blood on his shirt. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And you recall testifying that his blood appeared to be gushing out of him, I think were your words, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're applying pressure to try to help him at that point,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? So your hands, they would be covered in blood, right?
Yes.
Okay? And then he's on the ground and you can't see the wound, but you know this blood is gushing out, right?
Yes.
And you said at one point yesterday, you looked in the shirt and you opened up the hole of the shirt to kind of look in the wound. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I opened the shirt. I just kind of examined him, yes.
Examine him just kind of from the outside without moving the shirt?
Yes.
And you heard Dr. Kelly's testimony about when something like this happens, people get faint, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they get dizzy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they lose consciousness, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they get pale when they lose that much blood when it's gushing out, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was all happening to Joey at that time, right?
I don't know if he was dizzy.
But he's getting pale, his blood is gushing out, you have him on the floor. It looks really bad at that point, right?
Yes.
And then you said, all of a sudden, you hear the buzz door and you let John in, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you have to, like, on an apartment, you have to, like, buzz the kind of a button on the wall, usually.
That's correct.
Okay. And so then you have to get up in order to let John in, right?
That is correct.
And so it's your testimony that you have no phone when you're there because your phone is still in the living room, right?
That would be correct, yes.
And it's been in the living room for like the last 5 or 10 minutes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you let John in, you buzz him in, and that's how he gets into your apartment.
Yes.
And Joey still has blood coming out of him.
I don't think it was coming out at that time because we had pressure on it, so I think the coming out stopped.
Okay, well, you got up, though, to open the door, right?
That is correct. That is correct, yes.
And so then you would have had to relieve the pressure to go back, right?
Yes.
And when you come back, then it's your testimony that at this point in time, you don't call 911, right? Because you don't have your phone, right?
Yes.
All right? But calling 911 was clearly what Joey needed at that moment, right?
Yes.
Because he had blood gushing out of him, right?
Right.
So then yesterday, you said that you testified that you thought when John got there that you would be able to that John would be able to help you get to Joey to the hospital faster than calling 911. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And you still didn't have a phone on you at this time?
No, I was applying pressure.
Okay. And your meth pipe, where was that?
I don't know where the meth pipe was.
Okay, do you recall seeing a picture where it was bloody?
Yes.
Okay. So then, once John comes in and you hit the button by the door, that's how this all happened, right?
That is correct.
As we're talking about?
Yes.
So then we're going to move on to 9:47 as John and Christy walk in. So it's been about, if we look at Exhibit 184, it's been less than 10 minutes since all of this happened, right?
Yes.
Okay. And When John comes in, you heard the recording where John says, "You stab, oh my fucking God, Sam," right? You remember that?
I don't think he finished his statement. I think he said stat and then just stopped.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. And then you said, "He's breathing. I don't think it went through an organ," right?
Yeah,
Okay. And at that point in time, you didn't actually know if it went through an organ because it had been gushing blood, right?
that is correct.
Okay. And then, but that's what you said. And then you said, or I'm sorry, John says in that recording, "We need to call an ambulance." Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then at that time, immediately after, you say, "Hold on, it's just right here." Do you remember hearing that?
I remember saying, go ahead, and then after that saying that, yes.
Okay, so first you say, "Go ahead," and then you say, "Hold on, it's just right here."
Yes,
And then John asks you if you put everything away, remember?
yes.
Okay. And then you said, "I have to get the fuck out of here." Do you remember saying that?
No,
And your voice is on the recording saying, "I have to get the fuck out of here," right? We heard that.
no,
We didn't hear that.
no.
Do we need to play that again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I have to get this stuff away. Keep them awake for a little.
Joey, come on.
Do you hear that where you say, "I have to get the fuck out of here"?
Yes,
Okay. And you're the one that says that, right? That's your voice.
that is correct.
And then you say, "Keep him awake," right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you say, "What are we supposed to say? He fell on a knife?" And you said that, right?
That is correct.
And then John responds back to you, "I don't fucking know," right?
Yes,
So in this message, we don't hear John walk in and say, "Oh my gosh, let's get him to the hospital," right? We don't hear you say that. "Let's drive him," right? We don't hear you say that.
no,
Okay. And we don't say, "Oh my God," when he walks in. You don't say, "Oh my God, call 911 fast," right?
he said call 911, not me.
Right. But you don't say that, right?
No,
He doesn't walk in and you say, "Oh my gosh, help me," right? You don't say that, right?
no,
Instead, you say, "He's breathing. I don't think it went through an organ. Hold on, it's just right here," right?
yes,
And then after that, the sound goes blank at 9:47. And there's about 5 minutes before walking out of the apartment complex that you're in the apartment before you leave, right?
I'm not sure how long the time was.
Okay. Well, we saw video yesterday where you exit the apartment at somewhere at 9:52, right? So that's about 5 minutes after 9:47.
Correct.
So it takes you about 5 minutes then to get out of the apartment, right?
Right.
And while you're in the apartment for those 5 minutes, John is there, right?
That is correct.
And Christy is rendering aid to him, right?
Yes,
And 911 hasn't been called, right?
I thought he was on the phone with 911.
Well, you recall hearing that he was calling Jeff Hayes, right? You remember that?
That was after the fact.
You remember him calling Jeff Hayes when you were in the apartment?
No.
Okay. But when he is on the phone, he doesn't actually get a hold of anyone because they're really short calls, right?
Yes,
Okay, so he's not giving directions and saying, "Here's the address to the apartment," or "This is what's happening to him," or "This is John Pfeffer." He's not saying anything about anything like that, that would be consistent with a 911 call, right?
I wouldn't know. I ran to the bedroom.
Okay, so you ran to the bedroom to get some things, to get your drugs, right?
Correct.
Because right now, the most important thing is to clear your apartment of drugs, right?
No.
Well, that's what you do, right?
That's what I do. But that's not the most important.
That's what you chose to do. So you chose to do what was the most important thing to you at the time,
At the
right?
time, yes.
Okay. And when you go to your bedroom, you could have just as easily walked into the living room, grabbed your phone, and called 911, right?
Correct.
But you didn't, right?
No.
Because the most important thing was going to get the drugs in your bedroom before you left, right?
Correct.
And the most important thing is you having a conversation with John Pfeffer and being in that apartment for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
So while you're taking care of everything, you're taking care of everything related to you, and you're not taking care of anything related to the person who calls you the love of their life, right?
I don't agree with that, no.
Well, you weren't doing anything to help Joey at that point in time, right? You were getting your drugs, and you weren't calling 911, right?
Well, I was getting the drugs out of his house so that he wouldn't get repercussions.
Okay, so the most important thing while he's bleeding out in the kitchen is that he not get in trouble for having some meth, right?
That was my thought, yes.
Okay. So the most important thing is that he's not in trouble for meth, but you're not worried about the fact he is bleeding out in the kitchen, right?
I didn't think he was bleeding out.
Well, you just testified that he was gushing with blood. Blood coming out of his chest, gushing. Gushing.
But we
That-
put pressure on it so that it stopped.
His chest is gushing with blood, Samantha. That is serious, is it not?
It is very serious.
Okay, and so it is very serious. And the first thing we're going to be concerned about is getting some meth out of the house versus taking care of the person who is bleeding out in the kitchen. That's your priority, right?
Yes.
And we heard Dr. Kelly talk about how he's faint. He's having a hard time breathing. He is
I'm
losing.
going to object. That's a mischaracterization.
All right, well, I haven't heard the whole question yet, so let me hear the question, then I'll rule on the objection.
Sure. You heard Dr. Kelly talking about when somebody is stabbed like this, that they are getting dizzy, that their blood pressure is falling, that they're losing blood to such a degree that it does render them unconscious. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was after the fact. I didn't know
Well-
that at the time.
Well, you heard testimony that Christy Cleland said that he was unconscious, and then he was conscious, and then he was unconscious again, right?
Yes,
Okay.
but I'm not a nurse.
Okay, you're not a nurse, but he's still gushing with blood from his chest, right?
We had stopped the blood from gushing.
Okay, let's just talk about where this injury is. You've seen this injury just below the left nipple, right?
Correct.
And that's where you saw the blood gushing, right?
At first, yes.
And you said that as it's gushing, if we think about, let me strike that and ask this. That location is consistent with where somebody's heart is, right? It's on the left side of your chest.
Yes.
And that's consistent where your lungs are, right?
Yes.
Now, you talked about how he had been bleeding at that point at least for 5 minutes, right? Because the stabbing happened before John and Christy walked in, right?
Correct.
And he is bleeding out. He'd been gushing. And then at some point, you also knew he was unconscious, right?
Yes, he seemed faint.
Okay, but he went unconscious, right?
That's what I was told, yes.
Well, you said in that message with John, you said, keep him awake. And that's because he was losing consciousness, right?
Yes,
Okay, so you knew, again, that this is not going well, right?
right.
You got your phone, right, from the living room,
Correct.
and you got your drugs from your bedroom, right?
Correct.
And after talking to John, you walked out of the apartment, right?
Correct.
And no one prevented you from calling 911, right?
Correct.
And at this point, you have your phone, right?
Yes.
And you could have called 911, right?
I thought John was on the phone with 911.
Well, it's not uncommon that if there's an emergency, multiple people might call 911 if they want to make sure somebody gets help, right?
I don't know what's common.
Well, you could have called 911 as well, right?
That is correct.
And your fiance, the person you're supposed to marry, who says you are the love of his life, is bleeding out and dying on the kitchen floor, and you leave.
I didn't know he
You-
was dying.
Oh, Samantha, you talked about him being unconscious and having blood gushing from his chest. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about how serious of a wound this was, right?
Yes.
And you talked about it being near the lungs and the heart, right?
I didn't know that it was.
Samantha, you knew where the location of the injury was, near his lungs and his heart, right?
Yes.
And you left the apartment and you never called 911, ever,
Correct.
ever. Did you?
I said correct.
And so you leave the person who says that you're the love of his life, and you had just set a wedding date, and that's for better or for worse, isn't it? Marriage.
Yes.
And the person that you're supposed to be committed to, right?
Yes.
And you walked out and left him on the kitchen floor to die.
I didn't know he was going
You-
to die.
You left him on the kitchen floor to die because that's what happened, isn't it?
That's what happened, yes.
And you got in your Dodge Journey, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And on the video, we see you pull out of the parking lot, turn onto the road, and then turn right and go to Jeff Hayes' apartment on Northland Avenue, right?
Correct.
In your vehicle with no license plate, right?
I had my temporary plates in the back.
Okay. And at that point in time, you had a visible vehicle identification number in the front, right?
Yes.
And you had decals on the back window, right?
Correct.
And we see you on the flock camera, right?
Yes.
And you drive down Northland, and it takes you about 8 minutes to get to John's, right?
Correct.
And,
John or Jeff?
I'm sorry, Jeff.
right.
It takes you about 8 minutes to get to Jeff's, right?
Correct.
Pause. If we're going to start talking about another location, this is a good time to take a break because I've had the court reporter going for about an hour and 40 minutes. So we'll take a break we'll take a 20-minute break till 10:05. So jurors can keep their notebooks in here and we'll get you back in here in about 20 minutes. Okay, we're on break till 10:05. We'll have everybody back at the tables at 10:05. You gonna need a backup bottle of water, or are you gonna be okay?
In a little while, maybe.
All right, Tony, can you grab an extra bottle of water and just, so Ms. Krebs can keep it under her desk?
Thank you.
All right, and as I said, we're back on the record. Anything from a legal standpoint before we continue with the cross-examination? Ms. Rock? Okay, all right, we'll get the jury in. Okay, everybody can be seated. All right, we're back on the record in State versus Krebs. We had our first morning break. It's about 10:06 a.m., so we'll continue with the cross-examination of Samantha Krebs by District Attorney Melinda Templis. Go ahead, Ms. Templis.
Thank you. All right, so Samantha, before the break, we were talking about how you're about to turn on to Northland Avenue and head towards Jeff Hayes' apartment, which takes about 8 minutes, right?
Right.
And during that time, when you're driving in your Dodge Journey, there's 8 minutes that you could have called 911, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't, but you do make some other phone calls, right?
Yes.
So let's look at Exhibit 126. So 126 is a phone extraction. And if we look on the second to last column with words in it, we see where it says, from Samantha Krebs to Jeff Hayes. And there is a phone call on July 18th, 2024 at 9:53. So that was about the time that you were already driving down Northland headed towards Meade, right?
Right.
And you said in testimony that you called Jeff Hayes to let him know that you were on your way, right?
Right.
And you didn't want to just pop in on him, right?
Right.
And so you were trying to be courteous and call and let him know you were on your way, right?
Yes.
And you talked to him for about 44 seconds. Do you see that on the upper right column where it says 44 seconds? Or 44, 00?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you call and let him know that you're on your way, but you don't call 911, right?
Right.
And then in Exhibit 43, we see you driving through Northland and Mason at about 21:57. So you're getting a little closer to Jeff Hayes's, right?
Right.
And then you saw yesterday the video of the surveillance at Veterans Village of that entryway where we see you drive in, right?
Right.
And when you drive in, you're on the phone at that time, right? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
And we see that you, at that point, attempt to make 2 different phone calls, if we look at Exhibit 185, that you attempt to contact Joey, right?
Does it say Joey?
Well, this is you calling Joey, and this is a missed call on his phone, right?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Because we don't have your phone because your phone got wiped, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we have to rely on Joey's phone. So in Exhibit 185, you attempt to call Joey at 10 o'clock, just as you're arriving at John Pfeffer's, right? Or I'm
Right.
sorry, Jeff Hayes's.
Right.
And he doesn't answer because he is laying in the kitchen, fighting for his life and bleeding out at this point, right?
Right.
And then you try to call him after you call at 10:00:32 on Exhibit 185. You try again at 10:01:04. Do you see that in Exhibit 186?
Yes, I do.
And you know that he is in no way going to be able to answer the call himself, right?
I don't know that for sure.
Well, he was unconscious, bleeding out on the linoleum after he was gushing blood. Do you remember that?
He fainted briefly, but he wasn't unconscious when I left.
Okay, but in the phone call or the audio call that we have, you're saying that they need to try to keep him awake because he was losing consciousness, right?
Correct.
And at this point in time, it's at least 10 to 15 minutes. Let me just make sure I'm right. It's at least almost 10 minutes from when John Pfeffer walked in. So Joey's been bleeding out now for more than 10 minutes, right?
Correct.
And as you're making these calls, the first version of your story about that night is that you were at a friend's house that night and weren't even at his house or at the apartment with Joey, right?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. One of the first versions of your story is that you were at a friend's house and you weren't even there when it happened, right?
Correct.
So you calling Joey would be a way to try to cover up the fact that you weren't there and that you were at a friend's house and just checking in on him, right?
I guess that could be a theory.
Well, your story at this point was that you weren't there, right?
I didn't speak to the police till after that and said that, though.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about, let's go back to Exhibit 119. So at 119, this is a conversation you're having with Peyton, Joey's cousin, right?
At what time?
That night. And it's probably going to be a little difficult to see, but if we can grab Exhibit 119, I'll put it in front of you.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 119. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, this is a conversation that you were having with Peyton, Joey's cousin, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you see the timestamp of 10:14 when you say Joey was acting all manic, so I haven't been there, right?
Correct.
And then you see another one at 10:14 saying he was talking all crazy. Call me, I'm at my friend's house, or at my friend's, right?
Right.
And then at 10:15, you say, I'm worried about him. They just said he cut himself or something. I don't know yet. Cops at my house, right?
Correct.
So this version of your story was that you were at a friend's house and you weren't even there when he got stabbed, right?
Correct.
So if we go back to those phone calls when you're calling Joey at 10 and 10:01, which is Exhibit 185 and 186, you're starting to have this story that you weren't even there when it happened, right?
I don't want to guess.
Okay, well, you know because you were there. So
No, I was there, yes.
this is a phone call from you, and you're calling Joey, right?
Correct.
And we know that the story that you have is that you're not there, right?
Correct.
And so, if you are following along the lines of the story, that you are at a friend's house when this happens, you're not with Joey, right?
Correct.
So if you try to call Joey around 10 o'clock when he's bleeding out, that would be like setting up an alibi to say that you weren't there and that you were trying to reach him, right?
I don't know if that was my intentions.
Okay, well, 15 minutes later, when we look at Exhibit 119, that's when you're starting the story that you're at your friend's house and that you weren't at the apartment, right?
That is correct, yes.
And in fact, you continue this storyline that you weren't there and that you were at a friend's house, right?
Right.
And you continue to tell other people that, right?
Right.
And that is a flat out lie, right?
Right.
And then, when we're talking about you driving in, you call Jeff Hayes to let him know that you're on your way, so you're not rude and just show up. And Joey's bleeding out in the kitchen, but you never call Joey's mom to tell her that he's having a major medical incident and that he has a stab wound and gushing blood, right? You don't call her.
No.
And no.
No.
And you don't call the mother of his child to let her know that her child's dad is bleeding out in your apartment, right?
She made it clear my number was blocked.
Okay, well, you could have called from Joey's phone or your phone, right? You had the ability to make a phone call. Yes?
Yes.
You don't call anybody in Joey's family. You don't call his sister, right?
I don't have a sister's number.
Okay. But you don't call any of his family members or try to call any of his family members, right?
No.
Right, when you say no, are you agreeing with her statement, or?
You didn't try calling anyone, correct?
Correct.
Now, you said you went to Jeff Hayes's, which we know, and you know from the messages that you had with him in April that he's in love with you, right?
Love, I don't know. I knew he had feelings for me, yes.
Sexual feelings for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if we look at Exhibit 138, that conversation is about him saying that he thinks the two of you have to acknowledge that there's something between you, right?
Yes.
All right. And on April 20th of 2024, on Exhibit 139, he says the connection we share and the bond between grew much stronger today, I think. I noticed it like there was a chemical change in the pheromones we both emit. Do you see that? Yes?
Yes.
And that day, the two of you had been together and you spent a lot of time with him, right?
Yes.
And then in Exhibit 140, he talks about how it's not an issue, but it generally could, not an issue, but potentially could complicate things. Do you see that?
Yes.
And in fact, you're engaged at this point to marry Joey, right?
Yes.
And then on Exhibit 141, you says, I know that we are great friends, but never anything more on my end. We're too much alike, right?
Correct.
He goes on in Exhibit 142 to talk about how alike you are and how good of a thing that is, and it's rare for him to find someone who he hits it off with right away, right?
Right.
And he talks about in Exhibit 143 how he made an observation that it would have been natural and comfortable, good and right, for him to easily have pulled you in and been affectionate with you. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
And then in Exhibit 144, he talks about how he wouldn't have acted upon them, but he says it's wholly fucking inappropriate, right?
Right.
And that would be inappropriate because you're engaged to someone else at that time, right?
Correct.
And then in Exhibit 145, he's texting you and he says he felt like something he could have been done. He felt that it could be reciprocated. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that instead of getting a full-on slap across the face, it would have been welcome, basically. Do you see how he talks about that?
Yes.
And then in Exhibit 146, he says, I guess we're just gonna have to keep it purely sexual, no biggie. Do you see that?
Yes.
So sometimes there's relationships where it's just sexual and not an actual relationship, right?
Yes.
And that's what he's referring to, right?
Yes.
Okay? Then on Exhibit 147, we see a conversation a few weeks later on May 9th where he talks about how he's making dinner. So you and Jeff were going to have dinner together, right?
That was his plans.
Okay. And he went to, in Exhibit 147, great extent to make quite the meal, I would say. Is that fair?
Yes, he was a chef.
Okay. And so he outlined lots of different food that he was going to make, including having red wine and white wine and dessert cordials, port wine, and he was really going all out for this meal, right?
Yes.
And then in Exhibit 148, you say, for me and Joey or me and you? Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And then in Exhibit 149, he says, let's think about this, Sammy, shall we? Do you honestly think that I would want to put that much energy, effort, and expertise into making dinner like this for Joey? No offense, but I'd be more than happy to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with the crust cut off. Do you see that?
I see that.
So he is planning to make this meal with whatever plans you guys have just for the two of you, right?
That's what it sounds like, yes.
And this is more of a date meal than it is getting together for a barbecue with friends, right?
Yes.
And he's only talking about it being the two of you, right?
Correct.
And this is a couple weeks after he talks about keeping things sexual, right?
I think he was being sarcastic.
But that's what he said, right?
That's what he said, yes.
And certainly the way he presents 149 isn't very kind to Joey, right?
No.
No. And in fact, you had said before that Jeff Hayes was a friend of Joey's, right? Yes. And in this particular message, he's basically coming on to Joey's fiancé and basically talking about him, how he's just gonna make him a peanut butter jelly sandwich, right?
Yeah,
And that's not how friends are, right?
correct.
And you knew on July 18th, just a couple months after this, you knew July 18th that if you went to Jeff's house, he would help you no matter what, right? He would help you.
Yes.
I mean, that's why you went to his house, right?
I went to his house because he's an advocate for Joey's mental health.
So the person that you just left laying bleeding out on the kitchen, you go to his advocate and the one who wants to have a relationship with you. That's what you want? That's where you went, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay. So you go there not because of Joey, but because you know that you can trust Jeff, right?
yes.
And you go there because you know Jeff will help you, right?
Can you be more specific with help?
He'll let you stay there.
Yes,
He'll let, even if something, you make a terrible decision, he's still going to be there to help you out, right?
I can hope so.
Well, he does, doesn't he?
Yes,
And he meets you outside of the apartment complex, right?
correct.
And you saw video of you walking up kind of that sidewalk by the smoke shack, right?
Yes,
And you see him standing there talking with you, right?
that is correct.
And he doesn't embrace you right away, but he's in deep conversation with you on that video, right?
Correct.
And then within minutes of you getting to Veterans Village, you have this conversation we talked about previously with Joey's cousin saying that you weren't there and that you were at a friend's, right?
Right.
And then at 10:20, you recall watching a video from an Appleton Police Department body camera where John Pfeffer is being walked down the stairs of the apartment and gets to the door, and you're calling him, and he gets on the phone with you. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And he was telling you that the police were there, and Joey has a stab wound, and gives you kind of the basics at that point, right?
yes,
And at that point in time, that conversation is acting like you had no idea and you weren't there. True?
true.
And that's false, right?
False.
It's a lie, right?
Yes,
And then a little bit later at 10:20, you call John back again, right?
yes,
And at that point in time, John hands the phone to a police officer, right?
yes,
And at that point in time, you know you're talking to a police officer, right?
correct.
And in that video that we watched, that's you talking to him on the phone, right?
Correct.
And during that phone call, you told Officer Felmer that you left a couple hours ago, right?
Correct.
And that's a lie.
Correct.
And then you asked Officer Felmer if Joey was okay, right?
Yes.
And you knew when you left, yes,
Sorry.
that's okay. And you knew when you left that he wasn't okay, right?
Correct.
And you then asked if he took something, right?
That is right.
And you know at that time that the reason why he wasn't okay was that he had a stab wound that had gushed blood, right?
Correct.
And so you testified yesterday that you were just trying to be cryptic with the cop to tell him in case like Joey took something and they were going to try to give him an opiate or something to overcome an opiate. Do you remember that? Yesterday
Can
when
you rephrase the question?
Sure. Yesterday, when you were testifying, you said that you wanted to let them know without telling them that he might have taken something, and you were trying to be cryptic with them. Do you remember that?
I don't understand what you mean by cryptic.
Well, I don't either, but that's what you said. Do you remember saying that?
I used the word cryptic?
I thought so. Let's rephrase it this way. When you were talking to Officer Felmer, you said you asked if Joey took something. Do you remember saying that in the phone call?
Yes.
And yesterday when you testified that you wondered if he maybe took something and you wanted there to be medical care in case he overdosed. Do you remember that in terms of what they treated him with?
I remember talking about the opiate blocker in case he needed pain meds. Yes.
Right. And so you said yesterday that you were thinking about the opiate blocker, and so you wanted to ask the officer if he took something because you were trying to get them to understand that maybe that could be it. Do you remember that?
I think I said rhetorical. I asked him a rhetorical question.
No, I don't recall that. I think you were talking about how you were trying to make sure that he could get some help if, in fact, he needed an opiate blocker. Do you remember that?
Not
Okay.
exactly.
Well, at this point in time, when you're talking to Officer Felmer, this would be a really good opportunity to be able to tell him exactly what happened to Joey, right?
Yes.
And you didn't take that opportunity, right?
Correct.
And you would certainly want Joey's best medical interest taken to heart and at the forefront of everybody's mind at that point, right?
Yes.
And yet you didn't provide any of the information that would have been helpful, right?
No, I didn't.
And in fact, during that call, you hear an audible gasp. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And yesterday you said that you thought that Officer Felmer said his lung collapsed.
Correct.
Okay, we did not hear that on the phone, right?
No.
Okay, and so now, in addition to seeing the gushing blood, and in addition to seeing him laying on the kitchen floor and bleeding out, you're now concerned that he also has a collapsed lung because that's what you heard, right?
Correct.
And that would make it even more serious, right?
Correct.
Because in the original audio with John Pfeffer, you say it didn't hit an organ, right?
Correct.
And so finding out that now his lung collapsed would make it even more serious than it already was, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then so let me kind of go back to that. So now when we combine the stabbing with the blood and him laying on the floor and having periods of unconsciousness, and now potentially you thinking that he had a collapsed lung, that would certainly be a matter of life or death, right?
Yes.
And then you testified that you were trying to call the hospitals to get information and couldn't, right?
Correct.
But you had been on the phone with Officer Felmer, and he talked to you about the importance of coming back so that you could talk to him and you would be able to be with Joey, right?
Can you re-ask the question?
Sure. Officer Felmer asks you to come back, right?
Correct.
If you came back, you would be able to be at Joey's side, right?
I didn't know where Joey was at that point. If he had been taken in the ambulance, if he was still at home, I didn't know.
Officer Felmer told you in the call that he was still there and not to go to the hospital, right? Do you remember that?
He told me not to go to the hospital, correct?
Right. And he said that Joey was in the apartment and he didn't know his current medical situation. Do you recall that?
I don't know if he said he was still in the apartment. I think he said that he was in a critical medical state, yes.
Okay, so if your fiancé is in a critical medical state and you're going with the story that you haven't been there, then you could have come back and been with Joey if he would have needed medical care, right? To go to the hospital with him.
If he was still there, yes.
Okay. And Officer Felmer asks you to come back because he confirms you're his fiancé, right?
Correct.
And he talks to you about how serious it is, right?
Yes.
And you think it's serious because of the gushing blood and now a collapsed lung, right? And
Correct.
your response back is that you're not able to come back and have police contact because you're on probation, right?
That is also correct.
And you know in your probation rules that it says that you can have police contact, but you have to report it in 72 hours, correct?
Correct.
And you know that, right?
Yes.
And so you could come back, you could,
Hold on, I apologize for the mic, but some of her answers are muted, so if you give her a chance to say it a second time so it projects, so,
certainly.
okay, go ahead.
So you know that you can have police contact, right?
Yes.
And you could then call your probation agent and tell them that you had police contact, right?
Correct.
And at this point in time, Joey's life is hanging in the balance, right?
Correct.
And you're engaged, right?
Yes.
And you say that you love him, right?
Yes.
And you don't choose to come back, right?
Right.
In fact, you have a car, so you could come back, correct?
Correct.
And you say you have to check with your friends to see if you can get a ride back, right?
I said I needed to check with my friends if they would give me a ride back, yes.
But you had a car, so you had the ability to drive yourself anywhere at that point, right?
Yeah.
In fact, it was parked at Jeff Hayes' parking lot, right?
Correct.
So when Joey's life, the guy that you're engaged to, his life is hanging in the balance, and law enforcement is telling you that you should come back because things aren't good, you still choose not to come back, right?
Correct.
And you said your concern was that you had meth in your system, right?
That was one of them, yes.
And you're concerned that once you report that you do have this contact with law enforcement, eventually you'd have to probably do a urine test for probation, right?
Correct.
And you're going to come up dirty, right?
Correct.
Because you've been using meth, right?
Correct.
And that has its own consequences, right?
Correct.
So you don't come back, and your concern while his life is hanging in the balance is still about you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, we saw a video of Jeff Hayes leaving the apartment a little while after you left. Do you remember that?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. You remember seeing video where after you get to the apartment, you come out in some different shorts. Do you remember that?
Different than when I arrived in?
Yes.
Yes.
And Jeff Hayes leaves kind of shortly after that. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall watching the video where he pulls away and he was gone for a period of time?
Yes.
In fact, during that time, in that evening, were they getting updates about driving by the scene to see what was going on?
That I'm not sure of.
Do you remember that on Jeff's phone that they downloaded the scanner?
I didn't know that he did that, no.
Okay. So let's get to the next thing. If we could look at exhibit number 135 and talk a little bit more about Officer Felmer's phone call. So you talk about it being you talking to Officer Felmer, and you were really pretty good friends with Missy Kane around July of 24, right?
Correct.
And at approximately 11:59 on July 22nd, you and Missy are having a text conversation on Jeff Hayes' phone, right?
Correct.
Because you were using Jeff Hayes' phone after July 19th when John Pfeffer took your phone, right?
That is correct.
And on Exhibit 135, you're texting, right, I did talk on the phone to a cop that night, though I was in shock, didn't even know who I was talking to. I thought JP. And that goes into 136. Do you see that?
That is correct.
In fact, that's not true, right? Because you knew you were talking to a police officer, right?
I found out later when I received the evidence that I had a phone call with a police officer, yes.
So you didn't know when you were talking to Officer Felmer that he was a police officer?
He stated that he was a police officer, but at the time, I must have been confused.
Okay, well, we just talked about a whole conversation that you had with Officer Felmer, right?
Yes,
And that conversation was you making specific comments about very specific things during that call, right?
that is correct.
And you specifically told Officer Felmer that you weren't there, right?
Correct.
And that was a lie.
Correct.
And that was a lie, right?
That was, yes,
And you're covering up the fact that you were there, right?
yes,
And during that conversation, you make very specific points in time to say things to Officer Felmer that are choiceful for you, correct?
I would say yes,
Okay. Like this, did he take something, right?
yes.
Like, should I go to the hospital, right?
Oh, that was true.
And that was all very active conversation that you were having with him, right?
Yes,
And now you're saying when you were talking to Missy that you didn't know that you were talking to a police officer. Do you remember that?
at the time, I was under the influence, and I didn't really recall what was going on. It was all so hectic.
Okay, well, let's get to Exhibit 137. In 137, you said, they can't prove that was even me on the phone, though. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And so you're talking about whether or not we can prove that that was you, and you didn't think that we could, right?
Correct.
So that is you continuing to try to cover up information or figure out what your story is going to be, right?
Correct.
This point in time, July, you're 38 years old, right?
Correct.
And you have complete control over your own life as a 38-year-old woman, right?
Yes,
You make the choices about what you are going to do with your day every day, right?
correct.
And you aren't responsible to a particular another adult, right? It's just you making decisions for yourself.
Not necessarily, no.
Well, you don't have at this point like a parent who's telling you what to do, right?
That's correct.
And you're 38, so you get to make your own choices in life, right?
Correct.
So about a half an hour has passed since you left the apartment, and you heard testimony that all life-saving attempts for Joey ended at 10:29, right?
Yes, I heard that, yes.
And he's now dead, right?
Yes,
Okay? And you have already for over a half an hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, been trying to cover up your involvement at Joey's apartment, correct?
correct.
At 11:46, you saw photos that you were in new shorts, right?
That is correct.
And we have no idea where your shorts went, correct? They're gone.
I didn't know that, no.
Well, we don't know where they are, right?
Okay,
As we sit here today?
you're telling me yes.
Well, do you know where your pink shorts are?
Last of my recollection, they were in the dirty clothes hamper at Jeff Hayes's.
Okay, so you think that's the last place they went.
Yes.
So right now, today, you don't know where they are.
No.
And it's your testimony you didn't know anything about downloading the scanner page on Jeff's phone.
Correct.
And you were using Jeff's phone all weekend, correct?
Yes.
And you saw a video of Jeff Hayes going outside to your car with a Little Caesars pizza box, right?
I saw a video, you said? Yes.
And you saw that you come outside, right?
Yes.
And at that point in time, you also have a different shirt on, right?
Yes.
So now you have different shirt and different shorts, correct?
Yes.
And we don't know where your shirt is today either, right?
Last of my recollection, it was in the dirty hamper.
But we don't know where it is today,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Well, do you know where it is today?
No.
Okay. That's why I just answered the question that I asked, because it's specific. So you see video at 1:12, just a couple hours after you get to Jeff Hayes's, and you see Jeff come back from your car with a Little Caesars box, and you saw the video of the two of you standing in the smoke shack with him with the Little Caesars pizza box, right?
That is correct.
And you see him standing there talking to you,
Yes.
and you see him do a motion of kind of like pushing something in. Do you see that motion on the video?
I do.
Okay. And he's talking to you, right?
That is correct.
Isn't it true that if we are going to try to hide your VIN, we'd have to make that kind of same motion to push something in there to cover it up, right?
I personally don't know where a VIN is on a car.
Okay, well, you saw pictures that it's right in front of the driver's side, right?
Yes, I did.
And it's way down there, right?
Yes.
And so in order for you to have anybody to cover it up, you'd have to kind of push it down in there, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you see Jeff Hayes doing that and talking to you, right?
Yes.
And then you saw a video where Jeff Hayes takes it out to, the pizza box out to the dumpster, right?
Yes.
And you see how that pizza box cardboard matches what was ultimately found hiding your VIN number on your vehicle, right?
Yes.
Now then we get to the next morning at 8:51, and you sent Joey a text, "Baby, what's going on?" Let me see if I can find it. It's Exhibit 187. Actually, can I go back to 94, just to confirm? Exhibit 94, do you see that on the screen where you're standing there when Jeff's talking to you with the Little Caesars pizza box in the smoke shack?
I can't really see where I am.
We'll dim the lights. With her, yeah, we'll let the jury see it with the lights.
So Exhibit 94, if you look at this exhibit, this is the same exhibit of what you're looking at on the stand, or on the screens, right?
Yes.
And you see yourself there standing kind of by some seating, right?
I can't see it in this picture. It's black.
Can you please turn on the light, just so she can see? All right. Do you see yourself with your arms kind of crossed?
Not really.
Okay. Do you have memory of you and Jeff Hayes outside in the smoke shack talking with that pizza box?
I remember seeing the video, but on this picture, I can't tell.
Okay, but do you recall in the video seeing you walk out there underneath the smoke shack?
Yes.
Okay. So that's you then, right?
Correct.
All right, so then we're gonna move to 187. And 187 is July 19th at 8:51. And this is a text message from you to Joey. And it says, "Baby, what's going on? What happened? I love you, ... Let me know what's up ASAP, Or are you at work, ... 3 question marks. Do you see that? And you sent, yes,
Yes.
and you see that at 8:51?
Is that AM?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Says 7/19/2024, 8:51:04 a.m. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that was you sending a message to Joey, asking him what's going on, and maybe he's at work, right?
Correct.
And let's just reflect again. The last you knew, Joey was on the floor in the kitchen.
Correct.
He had gushed blood with you.
Correct.
He was in and out of consciousness.
Correct.
He did not look good. Correct?
Correct.
Sorry, I think it's...
Correct.
And you had a call with Officer Felmer where you thought he said Joey's lung collapsed.
Correct.
And so then, hours later, you're wondering if he's at work, right?
Correct.
Isn't it true that at this point in time, your whole story is that you weren't there that night, right?
Correct.
So this message is actually to pretend like you don't know what's all happening, correct?
No.
Well, he certainly was in a dire medical state the last you knew, right?
Yes, but I didn't know if he got help.
Well, he was in a pretty dire medical state, right?
Correct.
And the best case scenario is he's definitely not at work, right?
Correct.
And so at this point in time, you're trying to create a story that you're not even there, right?
Yes.
And this text would be consistent with you not knowing anything, right?
Correct.
Which in fact is not true, correct?
That is correct.
And another lie, correct?
Correct.
And so you're at this point just continuing to build your alibi to say that you weren't at the apartment that night, right?
Correct.
And you're still focused on yourself, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, let's talk about 10:55 when John Pfeffer and Christy Cleland come. And at that time, when they arrive on July 19th at 10:55, you learn that they had been at the Appleton Police Department all night being interviewed, right?
Yes.
And you learn that they did not tell investigators that he fell on a knife, right?
Yes.
And you needed a new story because the he fell on a knife wasn't going to be a story anymore, correct?
I remember telling them before I left that he had stabbed himself.
Well, the audio from John Pfeffer's phone says, tell them he fell on a knife in your voice. Do you remember that?
That was the first thing I said, yes.
Okay. And you said that, and then that next morning you learned that the fell on the knife really wasn't going to work, right?
No, I knew before I left that he should say that he stabbed himself.
Okay, but we don't hear that at all, right?
John testified it?
No, we didn't hear that you said that he stabbed himself from John, right?
I thought we did.
Okay, well, let's talk about that set of facts, okay?
Okay.
So, you said yesterday that if he stabbed himself, you wouldn't want him to get put on like a mental health hold, right?
That is correct.
And it's your testimony that, at least from your perspective, that he had a lot of mental health issues happening at this time, right?
That is correct.
And so, being the very concerned fiancé that you are, you would want him to get help for his mental health, right?
Yes.
And if he stabbed himself, he really needs to get mental health help, right?
That is correct.
And you really would have wanted to make sure that that was the priority, right?
Yes.
And you didn't do that, did you?
Like I said, the first time I said,
Sam, just answer my question. You did not share anything with anybody Let me ask it this way. You did not call 911 and say he stabbed himself and tried to kill himself, right?
No,
And you didn't try to get him help right away if, in fact, he stabbed himself, right?
I don't agree with that, no.
Well, you didn't call for help, right?
I thought John was calling for help.
I didn't ask that question. I said you didn't call, correct?
No, I didn't.
And in your story, in what we know, where you say that Joey stabbed himself, that happened before John walked in, right?
Correct.
Now, in this time, if we go back to Christy and John, they're in the apartment for about 45 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah,
Okay, and John Hayes leaves about 20 minutes into that. Does that sound about right?
can you repeat the question?
Sure, we saw a video of John Hayes, or I'm sorry, this is my error. John and Christy were upstairs for about 45 minutes, right?
I learned that later, yes. I didn't know that that
Okay.
day.
Okay. And you see Jeff Hayes leave about 20 minutes into that 45 minutes, right?
Jeff Hayes leaving?
Yes, you saw him exit the apartment and go by his car when John and Christy were still in the apartment, right?
Oh, yes,
Okay. And Jeff Hayes' apartment is really small, right?
yes,
In fact, it's like an efficiency.
yes,
And the bed is in the same room where the kitchen is,
no. No, the bedroom is separate from the kitchen.
but all in kind of one big general room, right?
No,
Okay, so it's a one-bedroom apartment?
yes.
Okay, we heard earlier that it was an efficiency?
You walk in and there's the kitchen, and then you walk through a door, and then that's his bedroom.
Okay.
And the bathroom's connected, so.
Okay, so there's about a 25-minute period where John and Christy are upstairs in the apartment, right?
Correct.
And during that time is when John Hayes gets your phone, where you give it to him, right?
Right, you've used the phrase John Hayes several times.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
My error.
confused.
I'll re-ask the question. Let me re-ask the question. That's my error. So you said that when you're that John Pfeffer and Christy Cleland are in the apartment for about 45 minutes, right?
Correct.
And you testified yesterday that you gave John Pfeffer your phone, right?
Correct.
And that was when you were up in the apartment as well.
Correct.
And they're up there with you for about 25 minutes after Jeff Hayes leaves the apartment, right?
Correct.
So the only three people in the apartment for about 25 minutes are you, John Pfeffer, and Christy Cleland, right?
That is correct.
And those are also the three people that were in the apartment last before law enforcement arrived and before you left the night before with Joey, right?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you were worried about what was on your phone?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, you had a conversation with your friend. What was your friend Brittany's last name?
Durant?
Okay, thank you. So not Brittany Hippis, right?
No.
So Brittany Durant, a friend of yours, right?
Yes.
And do you remember you had a conversation about there being evidence of threatening to stab Joey on your phone?
No.
Okay. We listened to a call that you had with Brittany where you talked about previously having threatened to stab, or let me say this. In this phone call, there's a call where you said, who hasn't threatened to stab their boyfriend? Do you remember?
Yes.
And then you laughed, right?
Yes.
In fact, cackled might be a right word, right? Like a pretty good laugh,
Yes.
okay? And this was after Joey was dead, right?
Correct.
And it was after you knew that he was stabbed to death, right?
Yes.
And this was funny to you because you laughed, right?
Yes.
And you heard testimony that you had threatened to stab Joey previously, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you had threatened to stab Joey previously, hadn't you?
I don't know that for a fact.
You don't know if you ever threatened to stab your boyfriend?
No, I don't want to guess.
Okay. Well, we heard testimony that 2 people have heard that you have threatened to stab Joey, right?
Yes.
And that's true, right?
No.
You never threatened to stab Joey before.
I don't recall if I did or if I didn't.
Okay. So you give your phone to John Pfeffer, and then you continue, or then over the course of the weekend, you're using Jeff Hayes' phone, as we've talked about, right?
That is correct.
And then on July 20th at 12:30 a.m., so just kind of Friday right into the very early morning hours of Saturday, John Pfeffer sends you via Jeff Hayes a text that your phone is gone permanently, right?
Yes.
Now, Exhibit 146 said that Jeff Hayes was talking about having this sexual relationship with you. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And in fact, later on, on August 23rd, do you have a phone call with Jeff that is an extremely sexual phone call with him?
Objection, Judge.
All right, we'll take a sidebar and visit on that. The jurors can stand and stretch, and I'll visit with the attorneys. Okay, you can have a seat. All right. Visited with the lawyers. We're going to get back to the subject matter they wanted to talk about. We'll do that later. We're going to maybe go about 20 or 30 more minutes before another break, and then I'll have more time to sort things out with the lawyers during that break. So we'll continue with the attorneys for about another 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll have a longer break. And maybe we'll check on lunch was going to come maybe a little earlier. We'll figure that out. Okay. I'm going to ask the prosecutor to shift subjects, or at least topics, from the one you just had.
Now, if we could put on the screen Exhibit 132. Do you see this text to you essentially, I think through Jeff Hayes' phone? Oh no, I'm sorry. Through your phone on July 19th, 2024 at 9:22.
Yes.
And do you see on Exhibit 133, the attachment that was in 132's text message about Appleton Police investigate suspicious death?
Yes.
And do you see a picture of the apartment complex on there?
Yes.
And in that message, was that actually on Jeff's phone? That message with your mom?
I don't remember if it was my phone or Jeff's phone.
Okay. So in that message, if we could look at that attachment, it says that Appleton police are investigating a death. Investigators call suspicious. Police responded Thursday night just before 10 p.m. to a residence in the 2800 block of North Park Drive Lane for an injured male. While life-saving measures were performed, police said he was deceased. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that text was sent to you at 9:22:05. So that's July 19th, the morning after, right?
Can we clarify?
I'm sorry, it's PM.
Yes.
Okay. And Exhibit 133 has that message, or has that attachment, but doesn't indicate the name of anybody, right?
Yes.
Doesn't say Joey's name in there, right?
No.
So it hadn't been announced yet who was deceased, right?
Correct.
And then if we look at Exhibit 134, it says on the top from Sam's mom, isn't that, it says Joyous, but it's really meant to be Joey's, right? Because we see that below.
Yes.
Okay, isn't that Joey's car on the left of the apartment picture? And that's at 9:29 p.m., right?
Yes.
And then you have Jeff Hayes' phone and you're responding to your mom about that, and you said, that's so fucking sad. They didn't mention me at all. I can't believe my love is gone. Do you see that?
Yes.
And so you were upset that you weren't mentioned in that article, right?
I was more surprised than upset.
It says, that's so fucking sad they didn't mention me at all, right?
Yes.
And you're focused on you, right?
Yes.
And not how sad Joey's dead, but how sad they didn't mention you at all, right?
Well, first I say that's so fucking sad. They didn't mention me at all.
Yep.
And then I say, I can't believe he's gone.
Right. But you say you're worried about them not mentioning you and how sad that is, right?
I was surprised.
Okay, well, they didn't mention his name either, right? Okay, so you're focused on you, right?
Yes.
And you saw on July 19th in the mid-afternoon around 3:30 or so, the video of Jeff Hayes removing decals from the back of your car in Exhibit 200, right?
Yes.
And you had a phone call with your mom in November of 2024. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Where you said that they think they have my car, but they can't prove it was my car. Do you
Correct.
remember that?
yes, I do.
And you went on to say, when they found my car, it didn't have stickers on it, right?
Yes,
And you're aware that we know that's your car, right?
yes,
And in fact, we can see those stickers coming off and why that changes, right?
yes,
And that was also a lie when you were talking to your mom.
yes,
Now, do you recall the video where Jeff Hayes gives you kind of that bucket hat or fishing hat?
yes, I do.
And that's at night when you're sitting in the corner of the smoke shack, right?
Yes.
And it kind of disguises your face, right?
No, it wasn't meant for disguise.
I didn't say what was it meant to, but I said it does disguise your face, right?
Could I see a picture?
Sure. Exhibit 105, do you see it there?
Yes, I can still see my face.
Okay, but it's kind of a wide brim hat, right?
Yes.
And it's right, yes, you said? And it's 8:45 at night, right?
Yes,
I think we need to clarify, there's a
Oh.
timing issue.
Sure, I'm sorry, it's probably 44 minus 38, so it's approximately, here we do the math, 10 after-ish, right? Or 8:06, I think.
yes,
Okay, so about 8 o'clock at night. Thank you for that clarification. As we go into the other exhibits, you saw a video of you standing in the smoke shack talking to an individual that lives at Veterans Village at night, right?
can you be more specific?
Sure. After you're wearing this hat, you're in kind of the smoke shack talking to someone where you see someone drive into the driveway. Do you remember that?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Would it help if we refreshed your recollection?
Yes, please.
All right, let me go to the right video. Okay, so I'm gonna play channel 2 on Vet Village Videos for Trial Krebs at Night in the Corner, number 1, channel 2, which is the Smoke Shack. And I'm gonna play that if you can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thanks. So if we pause it first, just to kind of clarify what it is, if we back up. In this video, we have July 19th at about 9:14, right?
Yes,
All right, and this exhibit was 1 minute and 15 seconds. Do you see yourself on there?
yes,
And you're wearing orange?
yes, reddish orange.
Okay, reddish orange shirt, black shorts,
Correct.
standing under the smoke shack?
Yep.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
we're gonna play that. We just watched that to the completion, right?
Yes.
And do you recall that incident?
Barely.
Okay. And you see where you're standing there talking and then you go and hide in the corner?
I don't think I hid, no. I think I put out my cigarette. That's
Did-
what I observed.
Did you quickly walk over to that corner?
Somewhat quickly, yes.
Okay, and then did you see that the other individual looked like they were watching the entryway to the apartment complex, the driveway?
I wasn't paying attention to where he was looking at that time.
Okay, well, in the video, do we see that?
That he's looking towards the driveway, yes.
Yes, and then do we see him kind of hurry you along as he continues to walk? And you both go into the apartment, do we see that?
I don't recall if he was hurrying me or not.
I was asked if you saw that.
No.
Okay. Then I want to bring your attention to the call to the apartment complex. Do you remember calling the Brookfield apartment complex number?
Yes.
And did you in fact go to the apartment and find your apartment door locked?
I think Jeff went.
Okay, so Jeff was going there to get things for you.
Yes.
Okay, and you knew who Kelly Gasser was, right?
Yes, I admit her.
And you knew that she ran the apartment complex, right?
That is correct.
And you know she was the contact person for any issues with the apartment, right?
Her and Blake, yes.
Okay, but she was the one that lived on site, right?
Yes.
And she would take care of issues that would happen at the apartment complex?
Yes.
And she was the one who, if something broke, you would contact her to have maintenance come fix it, right?
Yes.
And she's the one who, if there were any issues, she was there to be able to be on site, right?
She ran 5 properties, so she was really hard to get a hold of.
But she was there, right? Lived there.
She lived on the property.
Okay. And you called down to the Brookfield office, right?
Yes.
And you never mentioned anything about Joey dying at all, right?
I figured they knew it already.
Well, you never mentioned that, right?
No.
Okay. And you never indicated that well, let me ask this. You weren't on that lease, right?
No.
Okay. And so with Joey dead, you would need to have some way to enter into that apartment, right?
Yes.
And you didn't provide any background information about him being dead and needing to get in there, right?
No.
Your Honor, I'm just about at that point, so I don't know if the court wants to take an early recess for lunch. I know it's a little bit early, but it might be the right time.